Mike Nieheiser with Chuck Downie, president of Omineca Mining and Metals. That's OMN on the Toronto Venture Exchange. Chuck, it's good to see you again.
Great to see you too, Mike.
Now, I've interviewed Tim Termuende on this project over the years, and I just found it to be very different, very interesting. And tell me, now as your president, tell me about what you've been able to accomplish in the last year.
Well, within the last year, Omineca completed a reverse takeover transaction with CVG Mining, so we now actually control 100% of the Wingdam property, and we've just recently completed a $270,000 capital raise.
So those are the two significant events in the last year. I'm sure you've done a lot of other technical work, but I think it'd probably be interesting and helpful if you could summarize the scope and the history and the style of this type of project.
Well, it's like any good mining project. It's got mystery, romance, and a history of hardship. At the Wingdam, it's located in the very rich placer district of Barkerville. At the Wingdam, the historical placer gravels are actually buried under about 50 meters of sediment there. They're very, very rich, but very hard to get to. Starting in the 1890s, people knew that the gravels were there, these pristine gravels, and originally they tried to sink a series of shafts down, but whenever they got down near the gravel layer, they always had problems with flooding. The mines would flood, the material would run in. Subsequent to that, people tried to do the development, sink shafts in the hard rock outside the channel and then drive development into the channel, and same thing, they recovered a little bit of high-grade gold, but every time they had issues with flooding, the shafts would fill up. So people have been trying to do this for like literally the last 100 years. Now, more recently, what we're looking at and what the CVG mining did is they use what's called the Australian deep lead method. So you do all your development in the hard rock, so you're insulated from ever breaking into the gravels. And then what the CVG group did is they drilled a series of flat holes and they hooked it up to freeze pipes. So basically what we're doing is the freezing establishes a hard beam that you can mine underneath, and it also keeps the water out of the mine. And they were very successful. They actually did a test mine up there. About the channel is around 23 meters wide. At the area that they mined, and over the 23 meters, the average grade was about 14 grams per ton, so it's very, very high grade.
So you actually freeze the water in the gravels to provide support and also keep the water out.
That's right. Yeah, it works. Yeah, it works both as a frozen arch from a geotechnical standpoint. It's a frozen arch that keeps the back up, so you can mine underneath it. But it also acts as a dam to keep the water out. That's correct.
So tell me, does it require a lot of infrastructure above ground? How do you process the gold? How does this all work out in an operation?
Well, we've just received a permit, so it's a placer mine. It's not, although it is, you are mining underground. It's considered to be a placer mine, and it's a very, very low footprint operation. Really, the mechanics of it is we will go in there, we'll dewater the old mine, and then we'll set up to drill our freeze holes. Once we drilled the freeze holes and started mining there, basically the material comes out from underground. We process it all underground in a wash plant, and the only thing that goes to surface is the gold concentrate, and the water that we have to pump, and everything else stays underground. So after we've run the material through the trommel, we take all that material, we push it back in the hole we just mined, we mix it with cement, and we put up an engineered bulkhead. And then when the ground thaws out, there's no space there, so you don't really have to worry about the ground collapsing because it's just like a solid block in there.
So this must be an unusual project to permit, just because the regulatory authorities probably haven't seen one of these. Can you tell me the pros and cons of trying to work through that?
It actually was fairly straightforward. The biggest, or one of the biggest issues up there is there's the river that flows over top of it. Lightning Creek is a salmon-bearing river. So one of the main reasons that we're using this technology and the assurances I think the regulators need is that we're not going to have any issues with the sinkholes, because that's what in the past that's what happened. There's been sinkholes go to surface, but we're very confident by using this freeze technology and establishing a solid beam and tight packing everything that really we're going to have no effect at all on the surface up there.
So Chuck, tell me, why should investors be interested in Omineca Mining and Metals?
Well, like I said, it's a very interesting story. It's got romance, it's got a history. People have been trying to exploit these gravels for over 100 years, and it's always met with failure. But people have been driven to try to do it. I mean, in the 30s and 40s, there was a town there at Wingdam, and people have put a lot of money into this project. And until the CVG people came along and tried this freeze mining, it was always met with failure. And I believe that with using a type of freeze technology And by reworking some of the engineering on this thing, we can do this project very safely, and we can do it very efficiently. And in the long term, it's a beautiful project from a green standpoint. The only thing that's going to come to the water is going to be the gold. All the rest of the material is going to stay underground. So the only thing that comes to surface is going to be gold and water. And basically, when we leave, you know, assuming we're mining up there for 2 or 3 years, when we leave, it's going to look exactly like it does today because we'll just turn off the pumps and leave. So it's a really interesting project.
Well, again, Chuck, I really enjoyed hearing from you. Congratulations on your new position. Again, speaking of Chuck Downie with Omineca Metals and Mining. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.